Good morning, dear friend. I want you to imagine something with me this morning. It's 5:30 a.m., and I'm sitting here by my window with a cup of coffee, watching the first sunrise of this new week. As I look at my calendar for today, I see 14 meetings, a project deadline that's been keeping me awake, a difficult phone call with a demanding client, and my 6-year-old daughter needs to go to the dentist. Just looking at all of this, I feel that familiar tightness in my chest. But then I remember something that changed everything for me. Proverbs 16:3 says, "Commit to the Lord whatever you do, and He will establish your plans." What if giving this morning completely to God isn't just about saying a quick prayer, but about surrendering every single detail to Him? What if the peace you've been searching for starts right here, right now, with complete surrender? By the end of our time together, you'll feel equipped to hand over every worry, every plan, every uncertain moment to the One who holds your future. Before we dive into this journey together, let me know in the comments where you're watching from this morning. Hit that like button if you need God's guidance today. And don't forget to subscribe, because we're going on a transformational journey that will change how you approach every morning. Now, let me tell you about the morning that everything shifted for me. Let me paint you a picture of what my mornings used to look like, and maybe you'll recognize yourself in this story. 5:15 a.m. My alarm goes off, and before my feet even hit the floor, I'm reaching for my phone. 47 text messages are already waiting for me. While I'm brushing my teeth, I'm scrolling through emails, mentally categorizing them into urgent, semi-urgent, and crisis level. By the time I'm putting on my shirt, I already feel like I'm running behind, and I haven't even left the house yet. 3 months ago, I was living in this constant state of feeling like I was chasing time itself. I had convinced myself that if I could just control every variable, manage every detail, and anticipate every possible problem, then everything would work out perfectly. I was wrong. Dead wrong. Let me tell you about the morning when everything started to unravel. I was working on the biggest project of my career, a deal that would set our family up financially for years. My business partner and I had been developing this partnership for 8 months. The contract was supposed to be signed that Tuesday morning. Monday night at 11:47 p.m., I got a call. My partner was pulling out. 8 months of work gone. Just like that. I remember sitting at my kitchen table at 2 in the morning, writing frantically in my notebook. I wrote down 47 different things I needed to do to salvage this situation. 47 items on a list that felt like it was growing longer by the minute. I felt like I was trying to control a massive airplane with my bare hands, watching it spiral downward, while I pulled frantically at controls that weren't responding. The next morning, my wife Sarah looked at me across the breakfast table with eyes full of worry. She didn't say anything, but I could see the concern written all over her face. That's when my 8-year-old son Marcus asked the question that broke my heart. "Daddy, why do you always look worried?" In that moment, I realized that my anxiety wasn't just affecting me. It was seeping into every corner of my family's life. I was carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders, and honestly, I was crushing under it. My heart would race even when I was sitting still. My hands would shake when I was trying to focus on simple tasks. I would lie awake at night planning and replanning scenarios that might never even happen. The worst part was the guilt. Every evening, I would look at my list and feel like a failure because I hadn't accomplished everything I thought I needed to do. I was trying to be God in my own life, and I was failing miserably. That realization was about to change everything. The breaking point came on a Thursday morning at 4:47 a.m. I found myself sitting at that same kitchen table, surrounded by papers, notes, and printouts. My to-do list had grown to 73 items. I'm not exaggerating. 73 things that I believed I had to control, manage, or fix that day. I felt like a man trying to hold back the ocean with his bare hands. Every time I managed to fix one problem, three more would appear like some kind of nightmare hydra. I was playing chess with life, but life was playing by completely different rules than I understood. The harder I tried to control everything, the more everything seemed to slip through my fingers. I had become obsessed with micromanaging every detail. I would check my email 17 times before 9 a.m. I would plan out conversations before I had them, trying to anticipate every possible response. I even started trying to control how my wife organized her own schedule, which, as you can imagine, didn't go over well. The paranoia was getting worse. I genuinely believed that if I stopped controlling every detail, everything would collapse. Our finances would crumble. My children would suffer. My marriage would fall apart. The irony is that by trying to control everything, I was actually destroying the very things I was trying to protect. I wasn't sleeping. When I did manage to fall asleep, I would wake up at 3 a.m. with my mind racing about problems that might happen 6 months from now. I had lost all ability to enjoy simple pleasures. A sunset wasn't beautiful anymore. It just reminded me that another day had passed and I hadn't accomplished enough. A conversation with my daughter wasn't precious time. It was an interruption from my planning. My friends stopped inviting me places because they knew I would stress about how it would affect my schedule. I was becoming isolated from joy, from spontaneity, from the very essence of what makes life worth living. My wife and I had a huge argument about planning our family vacation because I had created a minute-by-minute itinerary for what was supposed to be a relaxing week. She looked at me and said, "When did you become someone who sucks the joy out of everything?" The physical symptoms were getting scary. I was having migraines 3 times a week. My stomach was constantly twisted in knots. I felt like I was living in a permanent state of emergency, even when nothing urgent was actually happening. But the spiritual drought was the worst part. My prayers had become just another item on my to-do list. I would pray for about 3 minutes each morning, giving God a quick update on what I needed Him to help me accomplish that day. I was reading my Bible like I was reading an instruction manual instead of receiving it as a love letter from my Creator. God felt distant, irrelevant to my daily struggles. The final straw came when my 6-year-old daughter Lily asked me, "Daddy, are you angry with me?" I had been sitting at the dinner table stressed about a presentation I had to give the next day, and I hadn't even realized that I was scowling at my beautiful little girl. In that moment, I realized I had become a stranger in my own home. My children were walking on eggshells around me. My wife was carrying burdens alone because she didn't want to add to my stress. That night, I laid in bed staring at the ceiling and whispered the words that would change my life. I cannot do this alone anymore. The turning point came on a Monday morning at 5:15 a.m. Instead of jumping out of bed and grabbing my phone like I had been doing for months, I did something different. I got down on my knees beside my bed. I didn't have some elaborate prayer prepared. I didn't have a spiritual formula. I just whispered, "God, I can't do this anymore. Take it all." I want you to understand something about surrender. It's not passive giving up. It's active trust. It's like relaxing muscles that have been clenched into fists for so long that you forgot what open hands felt like. As I knelt there in the early morning darkness, I began visualizing placing each worry, each deadline, each strained relationship into God's hands. The first thing I did was write a letter to God. I know that might sound strange, but I needed to get concrete about what I was trying to control. I wrote down everything. My fear about the failed business deal, my anxiety about providing for my family, my worry about my children's futures, my concern about my marriage, my stress about my aging parents. Everything went on that piece of paper. When I finished writing, I had filled 3 full pages with tiny handwriting. I read that letter out loud to God, and then I did something symbolic that might seem dramatic, but it was exactly what I needed. I burned it in our fireplace. As I watched those papers turn to ash, I felt something lifting off my shoulders. I made a commitment that morning. Every day, I would spend the first 15 minutes after waking up saying, "Your will, not mine," before I touched my phone, before I checked email, before I started planning. I would give my morning completely to God before I gave it to anything else. I started using God's names in my prayers in ways I never had before. Jehovah Jireh. I would pray, "You are my provider. I don't need to provide for myself through worry." Prince of Peace. You are peace itself. Let your peace guard my heart and mind today. Good Shepherd. You guide me. I don't need to figure out every step before I take it. The first week after my surrender was terrifying and liberating at the same time. I had the most important presentation of my career that Thursday. In the past, I would have prepared obsessively, losing sleep, rehearsing every possible question and response. This time, I prepared thoroughly and responsibly. But then I prayed, "God, this presentation belongs to you. The outcome belongs to you. I'm going to do my best and trust you with the results." Something supernatural happened in that conference room. The presentation flowed naturally. I felt calm and confident in ways I never had before. The client was impressed, not just with the content, but with something they couldn't quite name. They signed a contract that was actually better than what I had originally hoped for. But the real victory wasn't the business success. The real victory was the peace I felt throughout the entire process. I wasn't white-knuckling my way through life anymore. I was learning to walk in partnership with God. There were moments when my old patterns tried to resurface. It felt like learning to walk again. Sometimes I would catch myself reverting to old controlling behaviors, and I would have to stop and surrender again. What if I'm being irresponsible? I would wonder. What if surrendering means not taking care of my family properly? But then I would remember Matthew 6:26. Look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Birds don't have calendar apps, but they're fed. They don't have retirement accounts, but they're cared for. And Philippians 4:19 became real to me. My God will meet all your needs according to the riches of his glory in Christ Jesus. My family noticed the change immediately. Sarah said to me that first weekend, "You seem lighter. There's something different about your eyes." My children started approaching me more freely, not wondering if Daddy was going to be stressed about their interruptions. Our family devotions transformed from feeling like an obligation to becoming genuine times of connection. I started surrendering progressively. The first week I surrendered the big decisions. The second week, I surrendered my daily schedule to God's interruptions. The third week, I surrendered the outcomes of difficult conversations. By the fourth week, I was surrendering even the small interruptions, seeing them as divine appointments rather than frustrations. My prayer life completely transformed. Instead of asking God to bless my plans, I started asking him to reveal his plans. Instead of informing God about what I needed, I started listening for his guidance. Instead of emergency prayers when everything was falling apart, I started having constant conversation throughout the day. This was just the beginning of the most incredible transformation of my life. What happened next can only be described as experiencing subtle divine orchestrations that I had been too busy and anxious to notice before. During the first week after my surrender, 3 things happened that I cannot explain as mere coincidences. First, I received an email from a potential client at the exact moment I was praying about our financial situation. I hadn't been expecting any new business, but this company had been referred to us by someone I had worked with 2 years ago. The timing was so precise that I actually laughed out loud. Second, I was running late to a meeting because of traffic. In my old mindset, this would have sent me into a panic. Instead, I prayed, "God, you're in control of time itself. Use this delay for your purposes." While I was waiting in that traffic, I struck up a conversation with the Uber driver. It turns out he was an entrepreneur struggling with some of the same challenges I had faced. By the end of that ride, we had exchanged information, and he became not just a client, but a good friend. Third, there was a traffic jam that made me 30 minutes late to another appointment. I was frustrated until I learned later that day that there had been a serious accident on the route I would normally have taken. The timing of that delay potentially saved me from being involved in that crash. But the internal transformation was even more remarkable than these external signs. The constant noise in my mind was replaced by peaceful alertness. Instead of decision paralysis, where I would analyze everything to death, I started experiencing clear intuitive knowing. My relationship with time changed completely. Time stopped being my enemy and became a gift to be stewarded. Let me tell you about how divine timing started showing up in my life. That project I had stressed about for 3 months suddenly had a breakthrough the moment I stopped trying to force solutions. My most difficult client, the one who had been making my life miserable for weeks, suddenly became cooperative after I started praying for him instead of complaining about him. A financial concern that had been keeping me awake at night resolved itself through a completely unexpected source. I started waking up each morning with my first thought being, "What do you have for me today, Lord?" Throughout the day, I would pause before reacting to situations and ask, "How would you handle this?" In the evening, instead of reviewing everything I hadn't accomplished, I would express gratitude for how things had unfolded compared to how I had planned them. I want to describe to you what this guided life feels like. When a major client threatened to leave our company, instead of going into panic mode, I felt this supernatural peace that enabled me to have an honest, caring conversation with them. We discovered that their frustration wasn't really about our service, but about pressures they were facing in their own business. That conversation ended up strengthening our relationship more than any contract could have. My entire perspective started shifting. Problems stopped being threats and started being opportunities for God to show up. Delays stopped being frustrations and started being divine redirections. Difficult people stopped being enemies and started being assignments for me to practice grace. Even my physical health began improving. I was sleeping better because my mind wasn't racing at night. My appetite returned because my stomach wasn't constantly twisted with anxiety. My energy increased because I wasn't wasting so much mental and emotional energy on worry. I became spiritually sensitive in ways I had never experienced before. I started noticing God's presence in ordinary moments. I could hear His voice more clearly when making decisions. I felt His comfort more readily during difficult times. People in my community started noticing something different. Colleagues would ask, "What's changed about you?" A family friend pulled Sarah aside and said, "Your husband seems like a different person. What happened?" These conversations gave me natural opportunities to share about surrender and trust. Isaiah 30:21 became a lived reality. Whether you turn to the right or to the left, your ears will hear a voice behind you saying, "This is the way. Walk in it." I was literally experiencing that guidance in decisions both big and small. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 wasn't just a verse I had memorized anymore. It was the operating system for my daily life. I need to be honest with you about something, though. There were still moments when I wanted to grab control back. Learning to live in surrender is an ongoing process. But each time I chose to surrender again, the peace returned and the guidance resumed. I was growing in trust through various seasons and challenges. This transformation was preparing me to help others discover what I had found. Let me share with you the practical wisdom that emerged from this journey. Because surrender isn't just a spiritual concept. It needs to work in real life, with real responsibilities and real challenges. My morning routine became completely revolutionized. I wake up at 5:15, and for the first 30 minutes, I don't touch my phone. Instead, I take a prayer walk around our neighborhood, and my conversation with God sounds like this: "God, I give you this day completely. Every conversation, every decision, Every unexpected challenge that comes up, it all belongs to you. I set this intention before anything else. Lord, please interrupt my plans with your better plans. At work, everything changed. Before important meetings, I take 30 seconds for a silent prayer. God, let your wisdom flow through me in this conversation. When I'm writing emails, especially difficult ones, I pause and ask myself, is this response coming from anxiety or from peace? When I have to deal with difficult colleagues, I pray for them before every interaction. It's amazing how this changes not just my attitude, but somehow it seems to change theirs too. I developed a completely new decision-making framework. For big decisions, I pray about it, then wait 24 hours and listen for whether I feel peace or unease about the direction. For smaller decisions throughout the day, I do a quick check-in. God, what would serve your purposes here? For crisis decisions, I breathe deeply, pray, your will not mine, and then act from a place of peace rather than panic. Financial surrender became incredibly practical. Our budget meetings became meetings with God. I would pray, show me how to steward these resources in ways that honor you. Our giving transformed from feeling like an obligation to being a joyful response to God's provision. Spending decisions got filtered through questions like, will this purchase honor God? Will this serve our family's true needs? Or is this just wanting something because I'm anxious about something else? Parenting through surrender changed our family dynamic completely. When my children are struggling with something, my first response is to pray rather than react from fear. When discipline is needed, I ask God to give me His heart toward each child in each specific situation. Instead of worrying about my children's futures, I practice daily surrender of their lives to God's care and plan. My marriage was enhanced in ways I couldn't have imagined. I started praying for Sarah each morning before she woke up, asking God to bless her day and show me how to love her well. During arguments, which happen in every marriage, I learned to pause and ask, how does God want me to respond here? We still make plans and dream together, but we hold those dreams lightly, prioritizing God's design for our marriage above our own expectations. Let me tell you about some unexpected blessings that came from this lifestyle. A business opportunity came through someone I had been praying for during a season when they were going through difficulties. I experienced significant health improvement after I surrendered my anxiety about some medical tests I had been avoiding. A relationship with an estranged family member was restored after I released my need to control the outcome and simply prayed for reconciliation. Time management was completely redeemed. My calendar became a prayer map. Before each appointment or meeting, I pray, God, prepare my heart for this person I'm going to encounter. Interruptions stopped being frustrations and became divine appointments. My productivity actually increased because I wasn't wasting time worrying about outcomes I couldn't control anyway. Crisis management looks completely different now. When we had a family emergency last month, my immediate response was a surrender prayer before taking any action. When we faced a work crisis, I addressed it practically while holding the outcome lightly in God's hands. When we experienced a financial setback, I trusted God's provision while still taking responsible steps to address the situation. I got involved in my community differently too. Volunteer opportunities became a matter of asking God where He wanted me to serve, rather than just trying to fill up my schedule with good activities. My involvement at church shifted from obligation to genuine love. Even my relationships with neighbors became more open to divine appointments and everyday encounters. I started doing monthly reviews with God. Lord, how are you growing me? What do I need to surrender next? I make annual plans, but I hold them lightly ready for God to redirect. During major life transitions, I've learned to trust God's timing rather than trying to force doors open. Scripture meditation became practical and daily. I choose a verse each morning about surrender or memorize it during my commute, and apply it throughout the day, when old patterns try to surface. This keeps me anchored when life gets challenging. I want to be honest about the grace I've needed for imperfection. There are days when I revert to old controlling patterns. When that happens, I practice quick repentance and surrender again. I've learned to celebrate progress rather than demand perfection from myself. Having trusted friends who know about this journey has been crucial for accountability and encouragement. This practical wisdom has transformed not just my life, but my family's life, and even the lives of people in our community. When you give your morning completely to God, you're not giving up control. You're stepping into divine partnership with the Creator of the universe. Every obstacle that seems insurmountable today will bow before the God who holds your morning in His hands. Every worry that's keeping you awake at night becomes an opportunity to experience His peace that surpasses all understanding. I'm living proof that you can sleep with peace, knowing that tomorrow belongs to God. You can wake up with anticipation rather than anxiety. You can navigate challenges with wisdom rather than worry. You can experience joy in the journey rather than waiting for some future destination to bring you happiness. Romans 8:28 has become a lived reality in my life. In all things, God works for the good of those who love Him. I've seen this promise lived out in specific, tangible ways over these past months. The business deal that fell through led to an even better opportunity. The health scare that terrified me led to lifestyle changes that improved my overall well-being. The financial setback that worried me led to creative solutions that strengthened our family's financial foundation. Here's my challenge to you. Tomorrow morning, before you check your phone, before you review your schedule, before you mentally run through your problems, give it all to God. Speak these words: God, this day belongs to you. Every detail, every conversation, every outcome, it's yours. I trust you with all of it. I want to hear from you. Comment below and tell me what you're surrendering to God today. Is it a relationship that's been causing you stress? A financial situation that's keeping you awake? A health concern that's creating anxiety? A decision you've been trying to make perfectly? Share it with this community, because when we surrender together, we experience God's faithfulness together. If this message has touched your heart, share this video with someone who needs to experience the peace of surrender. Hit that like button if you're ready to give your morning completely to God. Subscribe to this channel, because I'm committed to walking alongside you as we learn what it means to live in divine partnership rather than exhausting self-reliance. May God meet you in your morning surrender tomorrow. May His peace guard your heart today and every day. May you experience the incredible joy of being led by love Himself. Remember, dear friend, you were never meant to carry it all. Your morning belongs to God, and so does every moment that follows. Thank you for allowing me to share this journey with you, and I'll see you in our next conversation about walking with the one who loves you most.